Welcome to another creature tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to set animation values over time and manipulate animation keys and knots and spline curves. Let's get started. Let's select a bone like the foot. Now you noticed that the spreadsheet pane at the lower left has been populated with a bunch of blue circular dots. These dots represent animation data if present at the frame specified. So in this case, at frame 0, you notice that there are 3 circular dots, which means these attributes, angle, pos x, and pos y, all have animation attributes set at frame 0. If we click on the cell of the spreadsheet, you will be able to see the value below. So if I click on pos x is 0, if I click on pos y is 0, and if I click on angle, it's also 0. Similarly, on the right-hand side of the pane, you can also introspect, change, or modify values of the currently selected bone. But this pane over here only displays values at the current frame. Right now, we are at frame 0, as indicated by this line over here. You can also see the current frame over here. It says 0. Right, so how do we set values? There are a couple ways. If the motor allows you to have direct handle manipulation, you can go in and drag, for example, in this case, drag the handles to set values. Or you can select the cell on the spreadsheet you're interested in, and then click on this key icon and set values. If we set this to 50, you notice that the foot has rotated up by 50 degrees, and the cell animation knot cell data is 50. Similarly, on the right-hand side of the pane, you notice the angle now says 50. I can also set values directly using the attribute pane. If I click on the key over here and set it back to 0, you notice that now angle is 0 degrees, and over here it's also saying 0 degrees. Right, so that's setting values at the current frame. I can also set values at frame 5, for example, by clicking on the cell at 5 and setting a value. Let's try 70. Okay, now you notice that a red line has been drawn between the animation knot at frame 0 and the animation knot at frame 5. The red line indicates that between these two knots, this value is going to be interpolated across the animation timeline. Now, you also notice that a new arrow, this right arrow has appeared, and if I move my mouse over, it says jumps to the next frame with a key value. So this allows you to quickly jump from the current frame to the next frame where there's an animation not defined. So if we click that, you notice, okay, so now this foot has rotated up, and we are now at frame 5 as indicated over here. And it says 70 because I just set that as 70. So that's basically how it works. You can set values directly using the spreadsheet view, or you can just go to the current frame and set it using the attribute pane. Now, there are other options as well in this spreadsheet window when you're in the key knots view. You can do a couple things. You can scroll to the current time. You can retime selected knots. What do we mean by that? Well, let's try something else. Let's go to frame 8 and let's set a value there of 0. So if I step through, you notice that the foot goes back. It goes from 70 degrees to 0 degrees. From frame 5 to frame 8, it interpolates the value from 70 to 0. I can retime this by multi-selecting, just dragging my mouse over and selecting these two values, and click on the clock icon. And this allows me to speed up or slow down the animation. So, and it takes a factor. So if I set a factor of 2, this means that it's going to lengthen this timing. So if I click OK, you notice that now this 0 degree angle rotation has been stretched out to frame 11. So this allows you to retime animations. In this case, the foot is now going to interpolate just a bit slower, or rather, it will rotate down by twice as slow as before. That's what the retime tool does. The other option you can do is you can shift the knot. So let's say I'm not happy with the 0-degree rotation at frame 11. I want to shift this knot, say by 2 frames, to frame 13. All I need to do is click on this and set a number of frames and click OK. And now it's at frame 13. So using these tools, you can easily retime and move your animation knots about. That basically concludes the key knots view. The other way to manipulate your animation data is to go into the spline mode. This allows you to examine and introspect the animation curves. Let's click on that right now. Okay. If you noticed, this is the animation spline, that we had animated for our angle attribute. You notice that it starts from 0 and the line goes straight up to 70 and it goes back down, it interpolates back down to 0. Right. These curves are straight lines. They're what you call linear curves. And sometimes that's good enough. That might be good enough for the purposes of your animation. Sometimes, however, you do want to change the nature of how it interpolates across the frames. What if you wanted to ease in or ease out the values? You can do that with Creature. The way you do that is to drag these blue dots in the middle. These are the tangent lines of the curve. So just hold on your mouse and drag. You notice that I'm now changing the shape of this curve. Now it's more like some kind of very flat S-curve. And so by dragging these tangents, you can change how the animation properties interpolate over time. So that concludes this tutorial on setting animation data. Happy animating!